Hello and welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show. I am so pleased to be joined by Amy Riolo. She is an award-winning author, chef, television personality, cuisine and culture expert, and educator, and she is speaking for the Utah Council for Citizen Diplomacy this evening over at Westminster College. Welcome to the show,
Thank you so
Amy.
much for having me.
How are you this morning?
I'm fine. It's
Good.
a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here in our state. This is your first time visiting Utah,
Yes.
correct? And you hark from back east. You said D.C. and
I was born in New York State, but now I live in the Washington, D.C. area.
Wonderful. Well, a pleasure to have you here. And talking about something that I certainly have learned to have a little bit more of an appreciation for, and something that, which is why I'm glad you're here, to share with us some of those insights and tips when it comes to really enjoying your time with the culinary arts. So let's first start off with what drew you to the kitchen, to being a chef, to exploring different modes of preparing a meal and presenting it. What first drew you to that in the first place?
You know, that's a great question. I believe that the way that I was brought up, it would have been impossible for me to end up doing anything else, because I was always in the kitchen. The kitchen was something that we did. It was our extracurricular activity. It was our chore. It was everything. I was always cooking either with my parents or my grandparents, and I just got a lot of pleasure from it. I realized how important it is, I think, at a very young age, from seeing their rituals and their traditions, that it was something that I would definitely want to carry on. And it was, as I grew older, I realized how much more special it was than I even could appreciate at that time. And I just really wanted to be able to carry those traditions on. You know, my grandmother had all of these wonderful baking traditions that she would do around the holidays, and no matter what holiday it was, she had a special bread or a special roll or a special cookie. And I realized that without that particular item, it wasn't the holiday. And I know that sounds very trivial, but it was our way of celebrating the holiday. It was our way of bringing that holiday to life. And I want to celebrate different types of things every day. So I'm always looking for different cultures in the world that are having a particular festivity or some way that, you know, we can bring about joy and happiness through food.
Oh, and I love that. I absolutely agree with that. There is much joy and happiness to be found through food. And I was sharing with Amy how I kind of more recently got into cooking, and it is absolutely an education in and of itself, and something that takes much patience from what I've learned. But tell me a little bit about your travels. I tried to find out what her favorite cuisine is, but she's like, I don't know. Maybe Italian, you said, right?
It's hard to pinpoint one. If I had to pick just one, I would say Italian, because of its place in the Mediterranean and all of the different influences around the world. You can have German influences or Greek influences or Arabic or Turkish. And so if I had to pick one, I would say Italian, because it's so varied within one country. And my family's originally from Crotone, which is a city in Calabria in southern Italy. So that's very close to my heart, and is my heart, actually. But the entire Mediterranean region has wonderful food. And for me, it's not only about the particular dishes, but about the spirit that they're offered in. And there's always a spirit of hospitality and generosity, and that's what I like to capture. So regardless of whether you're in France or Israel or Turkey, if you're in that part of the world, there's like this really generous way of providing things and laying out a table. And I love that. I like the feeling, I like the flavors and the freshness and the variety that's there. So I tend to stay within that region, but of course I can appreciate any cuisine all over the world. And if you look on my blog, you'll find things from places like Benin in the Central African Republic and Libya and Djibouti, and places that maybe a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to explore. So I appreciate all cultures, and I take great joy in finding their best dishes.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm sure sharing them as well is a big part of that joy. And during the lecture, let's get more into that in terms of what you'll be discussing. A little bit of that will include cross-cultural communications and relations through food and dining. Explain that.
Definitely. Well, there's just so much that you can say, nonverbal clues and verbal and etiquette at the table, that really set the stage for other areas in culture and other areas in life. Even if you're a business person, for example, and you have no interest in the kitchen and no interest in cooking, if you learn a little bit about how people eat or how people cook or how they share their meals, you'll be better equipped to do business there. For example, in a lot of countries in the Middle East, when you go, it's very rude to take something on the first try. If someone offers you something, you're supposed to refuse it. Then they offer it to you again, you refuse it. That's being polite. You can only accept it on the third try. So when you do this at the dinner table enough times, and you realize if you go to someone's home and they have to keep offering something to you before you take it, you will then carry that over into business. So if you're, for example, looking to sign a contract and you go with someone someone and you go to the meeting and you hand them the contract and they don't sign it right away, if you're from our culture, you'll just go back home. But if you're from their culture, you'll continue the conversation, you'll offer the contract again, maybe have some tea or some coffee, offer it again, and you won't give up on the first try because you know that there's this polite refusal that happens and kind of a back and forth. So there are all of these little clues that start at the table but spill out into other areas of society, and that's what's fun. I'm going to talk about that today, and I'm going to look at all of the different cultures that are coming to Utah, particularly nowadays. I was talking with different people at the International Visitor Center, so they gave me some insight in terms of which countries people were coming from that were visiting Utah, and I'll talk about those communities.
What are some of those countries?
There are
we're seeing a lot of
different Middle Eastern countries that we're going to talk about, and like Pakistan and Jordan, and also Georgia and Ukraine. We'll talk about some different places like that, and just give some tips that people can use. A lot of times, people entertain, or they're visiting people from new countries, or they're going to a new country for a lot of time. Everyone gets uptight, and they're like, I don't want to do the wrong thing, and I don't want to be the wrong person or say the wrong thing. And it's really, I tell everybody, just relax, because I think if you're yourself and you're genuine, you're honestly, and you're kind, even if you don't know exactly what to do, your sincerity will come through, and people all over the world appreciate that. And then if you learn a couple little tricks or habits or etiquette rules, that will help you, of course. But the first thing is just to have fun and enjoy the experience, and realize that it isn't a stressful situation, but a very wonderful experience and opportunity that you're getting to take part in.
That is a great mindset. It should not be stressful. No. Whether cooking or eating should not be stressful. And you share a little bit of that love in one of your newest book that you have out. Tell me about this. It is The Ultimate Mediterranean Diet. You've kind of formatted this in an interesting way. Tell me.
Sure. Well, the subtitle to that one is How to Harness the Power of the World's Healthiest Diet to Live Better Longer. So I organized the book like the Mediterranean Diet Pyramid, and that actually tells you what you need to eat and when. So instead of, for example, having first course and second course and appetizers, this book actually divides, there's a chapter on plant-based food, there's one on fish and seafood, there's one on dairy, and all of the recipes go in according with that. And because we're supposed to be eating the most of plant-based foods, so that's the biggest chapter. There are tons of recipes for that. And then we go all the way to the top of the pyramid, which is meats and sweets, which are the things that we're supposed to eat the least of. So even though chefs wouldn't normally pair those two things together, I have a very little chapter in the end with delicious meat and sweet recipes that we can have, once a week as a splurge. And that's the way people eat in the Mediterranean. It's a lot of what you should be eating. The base is very healthful. And then just a little bit of add-ins of what's not so healthy. So these are my marinated mozzarella balls. Those are absolutely
so
delicious.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you so
wow,
much.
this is just fantastic.
And they're very easy, and it also has a lot of memoir of my experiences living and working in a lot of the different countries. And it has the latest 2 years worth of research on the Mediterranean diet, because there's so much research they found. It can, following the Mediterranean diet, for example, can reduce your risk of heart disease by 47%, and helps with many illnesses like ADHD and inflammation and hypertension, diabetes and heart disease, cholesterol. So we talk about all of those in the book.
Wonderful. And where can we find this at?
It's on Amazon, along with all of my other books.
Oh, very good. Wow, you have such a variety of experience that you guys really need to attend the lecture this evening to find out more about it. And what else are you doing here during your stay in Utah? I'm curious. I asked you if you ski. You said you're not a major fan of the winter. So right now is such a perfect time to be here with the fall leaves. So
I love it. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a really a treat. The mountains are majestic. Last night I was on the foodie show, the radio show, the Utah Foodie.
That's great.
And so that's going to be airing this morning, and I have a luncheon this afternoon, and I'm really looking forward to the reception tonight.
Oh,
so it's a lot of great activities.
Excellent. All right. Well, any last words of advice for people like me who are new to the kitchen and enjoying that experience? Because as I was explaining to her before, that I grew up with a mother that cooked very well, but I'd never bothered to learn. And now I'm like, I wish I'd paid attention more. But what advice would you give to those who are newer to that experience, like myself?
Well, that's very common. That's what happens in most places. You don't have to learn because you're around people, or you live in a place where they have great food, and then you move somewhere and you have to learn. So I would say to find the challenge in it that interests you the most. Is it making something new? Is it coming up with new recipes, or reinterpreting restaurant things that you want to be able to have at home? Or do you have any special dietary restrictions that you can cook specifically for that at home? But really looking for the challenge in what interests you the most, and then having fun with it, because cooking is a metaphor for life in so many different ways. You have to be patient in cooking. You have to be flexible in cooking, and they're
very patient. Is what I have discovered.
It's one of the very few experiences where you really have to lose yourself, kind of let your ego go. So just enjoy it as a form of therapy and as a form of fun. And
I've never thought of it
you'll
that
like
way.
it.
A form of
It's good for
therapy.
you.
That is
Cooking
so true.
is good for you. That's my final thought.
I'll take your word for it. Well, thank you so much, Amy Riolo. She'll be speaking this evening for the Utah Council for Citizen Diplomacy over at Westminster College. Parking's pretty easy. It is today, September September 15th at 7 p.m. And I believe there's like a question and answer period shortly
yes,
after,
there's
right?
a book signing, a question and answer period, a nice little reception that we're having with some great dishes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Amy. Enjoy your stay here in Utah, and I hope you enjoy this weather. I can hear the rain through the roof right now. It's coming down pretty hard. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back after this commercial break. Much more coming at you right here on the Mountain Morning Show.